a 90-year-old client the other night. Her name was Suzette. She appointed one of her good friends, Angela, as an executor under her will. The next day I received a call in the office, and it was a call from Angela, and she said that she was very happy to act as the executor, but she didn't actually know what she was to do in acting as the executor. So we had a conversation because it's not common for people to act as executors. What she would be doing in acting as an executor is firstly locating the will. She'd then generally have a discussion with the lawyers who prepared the will, or other lawyers that she knew about the actual process itself. That process involves securing the assets of the estate, so quite often making sure that there's insurance that the assets are safely kept away somewhere. It also involves locating any other assets, so that can be a process of going through the records of the person who's passed away, just to make sure that you have a list of all of those assets. Once those points have been determined, you then go through a process of applying for a grant of probate. That process is usually assisted by solicitors such as ourselves, and that process can take 2 to 3 months to prepare the documents. Once the documents are ready, they then get submitted to the Supreme Court, and they'll usually take around 2 weeks to actually grant the probate. Now, the probate itself is a document that gives authority to the various institutions that may hold assets. It gives them authority to actually pass those assets across to you as the person who is the executor. Once you've received those assets, you can then deal with those assets. And when you're dealing with those assets, that's when it comes to the terms of the will. So you'll quite often sit down with the beneficiaries, you'll work out how the will operates, have a discussion with them to see if anyone wants to take a particular asset, depending on the way that the will operates, and then you'll make a distribution of those assets. Sometimes there's a couple of interesting points to consider when you're acting as an executor and you're getting to that stage of distributing the assets. One of the important ones is there anyone out there who might potentially make a claim against the estate? Now, that's usually in the context of someone challenging a will. They think they should have been provided for, but they weren't provided for. People in that category have 6 months, and that 6-month period starts from the date that probate is granted. Once that 6-month period expires, you can then go ahead and distribute the estate if you do have concerns about someone bringing a claim. Some other interesting points that you need to consider are taxation obligations. So if assets are sold, there's quite often a requirement to get a tax file number for the estate, and you'll generally engage the services of an accountant to assist you with that. There's generally also taxation returns that have to be prepared for the deceased and also for the estate itself. And it's quite a good idea to make sure that you have enough money set aside in the estate to pay for those expenses if you are considering making interim distributions to beneficiaries. Once all of those matters have been dealt with, the estate has been identified, all of the liabilities have been paid or provided for, you can then move ahead to actually distribute the estate. And that's when you actually pass the assets or the proceeds from the sale of those assets through to the beneficiaries under the terms of the will. Quite often when you get to that stage, one of the important aspects is making sure that you keep discussions open with those beneficiaries and give them a sense of timing. One of the biggest issues we see in assisting clients, and especially executors in dealing with estates, is a beneficiary that has an expectation that they'll receive money 2 to 3 months after someone passes away. Generally that's not the case. It's more likely to be 6 to 12 months by the time you go through the process of obtaining the grant of probate, collecting those assets, allocating for any liabilities, and then actually making those distributions. So that's one of the key aspects of acting as an executor, is keeping those lines of communication open with the beneficiaries. So that was a quick overview of your responsibilities as an executor. What we'll talk about next is looking at the payment of executors and some issues that come up in relation to Executors Commission. We'll talk about that next time.